This is a Tracking the Tropics update with the certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
Well, hello everyone. Here's the latest on Hurricane Milton. Cat 3 Milton is now a Cat 2, but pretty darn powerful. Sustained winds of 110 miles per hour. Then that position technically is 20 miles northeast of Sarasota, but that is the pinpoint center of the eye. Basically, the eye wall, the southern, the eastern, the northern, the western quadrant, all of the whole eye wall scenario is pretty much over different areas of what we call the Tampa Bay metropolitan region. We've now seen numerous reports of gust winds of over 100 miles per hour, and the whole Tampa Bay area from Clearwater to the airport down to Sarasota, Egmont Key, they're going to continue to be pounded with these same conditions. And by the way, copious amounts of rain. I'm not even sure if that word says it correctly. We've seen some reports there in the St. Petersburg area of probably over 17 inches of rain. 17 inches of rain, in addition to the winds gusting to over 100 miles per hour. And of course, some areas have had a storm surge of 9 to 13 feet. We know it was going to be bad for them, exponentially worse for them. But what about for us? Well, I'll tell you, if anything, this has made the turn. Remember, it's heading northeast. Now it's heading east-northeast, basically right along I-4. And at its current speed, first of all, I should say, it really did make landfall several hours before forecast. And that was a forecast from just this afternoon. So we went from yesterday afternoon, where most of the models that we like to use were indicating maybe this is going to take a while making the turn. Maybe it's not going to make landfall until midnight or 2, made it at 8:30. But there's some positive there, at least for us. The quicker this gets across the peninsula, the less additional rainfall we're going to have, the less pounding of the winds, and then the earlier our peak winds will occur, and the earlier the heavy rains will come to an end. So I'm going to put a few things into motion here. Actually, you know what? Why don't we show you the extent of the storm surge? We're going to show you Fort Myers. In fact, I think this is a nighttime shot. Obviously pretty windy, but even Fort Myers and points farther to the south experienced a significant storm surge. And what I mean by that is 6 to 8 feet. So think about that. We're concerned about a 2 to 4 foot storm surge on the St. Johns River, 3 to 5 foot storm surge on the ocean, and yet on the west coast, that is Fort Myers, over 60 to 100 miles away from landfall, they had a significant storm surge of at least 6 to 8 feet. I hope it's not going to end up being more than that, but of course more than that farther off to the north. So even as far away as Fort Myers, being hit really hard. Okay, let's come back to the maps. I want to show you just a couple things, and what I really want to do is have a conversation with you. Have you ask questions, and then Heather is going to be our director, our captain, so to speak. All right, so we're going to zoom on in. Notice the official forecast certainly is for the hurricane to be about 100 miles offshore by 7 p.m. We think it may now get offshore our local waters by as early as 6 to 8. So here's the big picture. I think you can see the eye. Notice the heavy rains are pretty much along the northern part of the eye. Look at all of that lightning out over the Atlantic. We're keeping a close watch on that because that lightning, those are the thunderstorms that produced all of the tornadoes earlier in the day. And some concern that some of those thunderstorms might try to wrap back up toward at least St. Johns County, if not farther to the north. But so far, just by looking at the lightning, we see it heading north. We don't see it coming back yet our way. We'll keep a close watch on that. So there's a look at the big picture. And this is why I have 6 a.m. So our highest wind gust, the beginning of the end of the heaviest rains, will occur at Hurricane Milton's closest pass by us, so to speak. And that's going to be when it's due south of us. And now it's looking like that's going to occur at about 6 a.m. Still the same position we've been talking about really since last night, that it continues along this track east-northeast, basically think I-4 or just south of I-4. Then that would place the eye just before it heads offshore about 150 miles south of St. Augustine, about 120 miles south of NAS Jax. All right, we're going to zoom in those boxes. Those really, they're called polygons. That's where the flash flood warnings are right now. Pretty much have been all day. And it pretty much lines up where we thought the highest potential for rainfall totals of 10 to 12 inches, maybe more, would be the southern half of St. Johns County, extreme eastern and southern Putnam County, and then points farther off toward the south. So there you see the continuous rain spiraling up. Just picture around the hurricane. But I do want you to look now sort of where my chin is. You see that the western edge? There's a lot going on there, I know. If you look at the ocean, you see a lot of rain coming at us from the ocean. But if you look to the west there, that's over the last 3 hours, that's where the drier air is coming in from the west. And so that's what's going on tonight. That although, yes, you see all of this precipitation spiraling up and around the hurricane, all the while, though, that drier air is coming at us from the west. And I think this picture shows it even more so. And that's going to continue to happen as the hurricane continues to head to the east and northeast at 16. Why is it doing that? Well, the weather map really puts it all together, and it's running right along a front that has been there because of that extreme low pressure. And remember, at Cat 2, we're still talking about a 962 millibar low. That's just low pressure, folks, and high pressure just to our north. So truly, the isobaric squeeze is on between that hurricane and between high pressure. So notice here we are at 2 in the morning. And what I'm showing you on the weather map is really when we will be the windiest and where the largest heavy rainfall shield will occur, between about midnight and 6 to 8 in the morning. Notice what happens by about 7 to 8 in the morning. The spiral, what's left of the eye, heads offshore. The high pressure system repositions itself. And by then, between about 6 and 8, the heaviest rains will go offshore. We're still going to have very gusty winds along the coastline, but then by 10 in the morning, even the tight, we call it gradient, around the hurricane should begin to head offshore as well. We're going to talk much more about that, but one of the biggest questions has been, is it going to be as bad as Irma? As strong as this storm is, and as windy and as heavy as the rains will be, between really now and 8 tomorrow morning, it's not going to be Irma. Check out the numbers. As far as the river levels, at Irma reached about 5 to 7 feet, talking Duval County through St. John's, but even down into Doctor's Inlet and Doctor's Lake, 5 to 7. We're looking 2 to 4 for Milton, so that's about 3 feet lower. That's the difference between just street flooding and getting into homes and businesses. And then real quickly wanted to talk about Matthew. For some oceanfront concerns, we're looking for 3 to 5 feet from Nassau County beaches down to St. Johns County beaches, whereas Matthew was more 5 to 8. But that's enough of me rambling on. Heather, thanks for being here, and Heather is here to be our captain and share some questions. Heather?
Tim, you've done an excellent job. You've been forecasting storms for 40 plus years now. We know Hurricane-Milton made landfall tonight around 8:30 in Sarasota County in Siesta Key. The question for a lot of people here on the First Coast is, it's after 10 o'clock at night. A lot of people want to get a restful night's sleep. What's your advice to people as the storm makes its way toward us? It's going to pass to the south of us. But what should people know? What's your advice as they want to head to bed tonight?
Well, first of all, certainly I am all in support of rest. But I understand there might be some anxiety out there. But something else Heather said that was significant. This is going to stay to our south all night and morning, folks. Southwest, south, and then southeast. But what that means is the winds will primarily be out of the same direction. It also means, except for coastal St. Johns County, and I want to emphasize that, coastal St. Johns County, I can't rule out maybe some tornadoes. But if you're not in coastal southeastern St. Johns County, for the rest of us, I'm not concerned about tornadoes. It's just going to be straight line winds, meaning and the winds will blow out of the north and northeast all night long. So think about if there's a side of your house that you're most concerned about, either because of something in the neighbor's yard, a house under construction, maybe some old trees. If they're off to your north and northeast and there's bedrooms on that side of the house, I'd say, let's take everyone out of those bedrooms and put them in another place. Either in the hallway, or if there's any bedrooms on the southern or southwest side of the building, would be a much better place to be. Downstairs better than upstairs. But I think yeah, if you can get some rest, and you're concerned, just don't put yourself on the most sensitive side of the home you're in, and that's going to be on the north and northeast side of the home.
Okay, that's good to know. I've told my kids I left a blow-up mattress and told them to sleep in the hallway, away from the windows, just to be safe. I was covering Helene in Waycross, Georgia, just less than 2 weeks ago, and there were a lot of trees that ended up on homes. Some of them came through. We want to invite all of you watching on YouTube and First Coast News Facebook page and our First Coast News Weather Watchers page to type your questions in the chat below. We've got them pulled up, and we're going to be asking Tim some of these questions. And Tim, Nikki has this question. She's heard the word describing Milton as an unprecedented storm. Her specific question is, she understands Gulf waters are warmer and we had a nor'easter, but how does this storm go from a Cat 1, she said, to a Cat 4 in less than 24 hours? And actually, I think that rapid intensification went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 on the same day.
Exactly.
How's that happen?
Exactly, Cat 5. So no doubt about it, a big deal, but I do want to make sure we're defining unprecedented correctly. So first of all, unprecedented in its rapid intensification for an October hurricane. One other one did it in the Gulf of Mexico, and that was Wilma. And that eventually crossed South Florida, but it really pounded the Yucatan. But still, just those two now. So how does that happen? Well, remember, heat doesn't just make us sweat. Heat really is a measure of potential energy. So the warmer the waters are, and the Gulf of Mexico in October, especially where this formed deep down in the Bay of Campeche, in fact, extreme southwestern Gulf of Mexico. If you would have asked me in January, Tim, if you're most concerned about a rapid intensifying hurricane in October, where would it have to form? And this one formed about exactly there. And so basically, the warmer the waters are, the more potential there is for hurricanes to become strong. And if all the other ingredients are there, and that basically means a lot of moist air, and there was, and then an upper level high on it. And what I mean by that is a tropical cyclone is like any other low pressure system on Earth. Every other low pressure system on Earth, the stronger the winds are at 30,000 feet, the stronger this low is going to be. A hurricane is the exact opposite. Not only does it need very light winds above it, but it actually needs high pressure. In other words, whereas the hurricane's winds on the surface are blowing counterclockwise, it needs high pressure above it where it's going in the opposite direction. It needs to have an anticyclone. And that's exactly what happened, and this happened. But if you think about it, it's been that kind of a year. I mean, Beryl was the earliest Cat 5 that has ever formed in our part of the world in human history, and that's because the Atlantic and then the Caribbean this year and last year were the warmest they've ever been. And sure enough, not every system that goes over those waters come together, but when the ingredients are right, and they were, then unfortunately we get these Cat 5s. I hope, a eye-opener for a lot of us that we need to be really thinking about why are these oceans getting warmer, and then what those warm oceans and Gulf waters do. I could go on about that all night long, but have another question.
All right, Tim. So we have some specific questions. Several of our viewers are wanting to know about San Marco. You know, this is a part of Jacksonville that we've seen flood over and over and over again. And so a couple of folks are asking, how bad can we expect the flooding and storm surge to get in San Marco, and particularly in the San Marco Square area? Okay,
so for San Marco, and really for that matter, most areas that are impacted by the St. John's, both as far as how high up is the St. John's going to be, like is it going to flood, but also the higher the St. John's is and your drainage is impacted from heavy rains. In other words, the higher the St. John's is, the less it can handle rainwater going into the drainage areas. San Marcos, south side of States, places all the way across on the other side of the River Ortega, up toward Ken Knight Drive, Trout River, along Heckscher Drive. There's a lot of numbers I could throw at you, but basically think 4 feet. Before the river gets to 4 foot, 1, 2, 3 feet, it's for the most part not going to get out of its banks. But it's still a big deal. If we have heavy rain and it's at 1, 2, or 3 feet above, that means the roads just can't drain. And so San Marco and other areas are going to flood. But it's primarily going to be a street flooding event, maybe getting to the doors of some businesses. If we get to that 4 foot level, at the same time we're having heavy rain, then it's a whole nother scenario. Then we can get 1 to 2 feet of water, if not more, into homes and into businesses. So what we're going to be watching tonight between midnight and 6 is that threshold, because we're going to be at high tide on the river in that general time frame, 4 a.m. It's when some of our heaviest rains are going to be. So it's going to be close during the midnight to 6 a.m. period, certainly for the San Marco area. I would expect there's going to be street flooding. I think the big question is, will it get into businesses? Now, it's also another reason why I talked about Irma earlier. And we do not expect this to be an Irma. I understand why people were asking. It's like Irma in that this is a major hurricane. It is coming from the Gulf of Mexico. However, Irma took over 2 days to cross the peninsula from southwest north to northeast. That is to us. Whereas this hurricane, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's do the math. Made landfall at 8:30, could be offshore by 6, 10 hours. So there just won't be the accumulative effect of both storm surge and rainfall that we had from Irma. So to me, that's good news. It's not going to be as bad as Irma was. I would love to say there isn't going to be any flooding, but I do think there's going to be street flooding, to your question specifically, in San Marco. As far as if it's going to be enough to get into homes and businesses, I'd give that about a 20 or 30% chance. So I don't think it's likely, but I can't rule it out quite yet.
And I remember, Tim, I think it was after Irma when we saw significant flooding in the downtown area, but then across the First Coast, we had to watch those high tides for several days. We know the storm's going to be out of here by Thursday afternoon. Could we continue to see potential flooding in the coming days?
Yeah, great question. And I think Heather's alluding to what we all were aware of, and that is, first of all, when the water gets into what we call the St. John's water basin, from high tide, from rising seas, then all of that fresh water, it's got a very narrow mouth, and so it takes a while for that to get out. And in fact, when we have 2 high tides and 2 low tides every day, it kind of really sloshes back and forth. And so it does take a long time. But in addition to the fact that if there was no additional rainfall, that in itself would take a long period of time. But, and I think what Heather's alluding to is, remember, the St. John's River flows from south to north. And so those amazing rains that have already hit St. Pete, I wouldn't be surprised now if we're going to hear St. Pete got 20 inches in one day.
Wow.
Those type of rains, maybe not quite that heavy, but those type of rains are going to be falling on the St. John's watershed south of us. And that's all going to be pouring into the St. John's. Now, it's not going to cause a massive flash flood like you see in the mountains, but that does mean all of that water probably over the next month is going to have to get through the area. And so, yeah, I would suspect that even when the sun is out, we're going to have many sunny days where we're going to see water coming up through the drains. And of course, a greater concern will be, because it may take a month for that to drain, that if we have another heavy rain event, then we may be concerned about that double whammy.
Oh, let's hope we do not have that. Maddie and several of our other viewers on YouTube are asking about St. Johns County. And when you talk about St. Johns County, I know you've been very specific about southern St. Johns County versus northern St. Johns County, and then the coastal part of the county. Can you kind of break down the county for us? What are we expecting overnight into tomorrow in St. Johns County? You
bet. So by far, the worst combination, that is of heavy rain, of winds potentially gusting up to 65 or maybe even over 70 miles per hour, is going to be in the Volano Beach to St. Augustine to Crescent Beach area. That's where the windiest will be. Still going to be windy all the way up to Ponte Vedra Beach, but the windiest and the greatest risk of the storm surge up to 5 feet. So it's not Matthew, but still up to 5 feet. That would be in the St. Augustine Beach southward. Downtown St. Augustine, Davis Shores, then to me, you're next in line with that combination. Remember, high tide, the next high tide is going to be about 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's going to be at the height of some continued heavy rains and the gustiest of winds. So that's my biggest concern area. For the rest of St. Johns County, it's rainfall. And how does your area drain with rain, even if you're not concerned about tidal? I do think from the World Golf Village south, you're going to end up with some rainfall totals of maybe about 10 inches, whereas north of World Golf Village, things really drop off, and maybe you'll end up with about 2 to 4 inches. I think another way to put it, if you're in a new neighborhood in St. Johns County, let's say that's been built over the last 10 or 20 years, you probably have some pretty good drainage. And so my biggest concern for you are just the big trees there. If you're in an older part of St. Johns County where the drainage probably isn't so well, where maybe you were allowed to build closer to a wetland, then you do need to be aware of some flooding that will occur just plain from the rainfall, having nothing to do with tidal.
What about, Albert's asking about Lake City. Columbia County was an area we saw got a lot of trees down during Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. Is there a threat for our friends in Lake City?
Breathe easy. In fact, for those of you in Lake City, I think any rain you're having is going to end within about an hour. You're going to wake up in the morning with a north breeze and might see temperatures in the upper 50s. You deserve to have a nice breeze, and Lake City, you're looking that way. And while we're talking about Lake City, I have to talk about Ware County and Waycross. Nice cool breeze tonight. In fact, you're probably going to see stars before dawn comes. So at least for those of you that were hit hardest with Debbie and Helene, you are going to get off nice and easy.
Okay, Tim, I know we're going to get an 11 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center, and you've got to get ready for our newscast. But any final thoughts? You've been forecasting storms for decades. Where do you put Hurricane-Milton in all the storms you've covered? So
for that's a great question. I'll tell you what. Let's wait until it's out of here. But I will say, not as bad as Matthew and Irma, but still certainly a significant event. And just as a reminder, folks, all it takes is one tree in an inopportune time. So hopefully everyone's just going to stay inside for the rest of the night through the early morning hours. I do think even our skies will start getting brighter by about noon. So if anybody can just hunker down, try to put up with your brother and sister till about the noon hour, and I think we'll all be in much better shape.
Are my kids listening? I see them on the Ring camera outside. I said, get inside now. I hope they're listening. Tim, thank you and all of our meteorologists for all the hard work you're doing, keeping everyone safe. We're going to have complete team coverage coming up in about 30 minutes on First Coast News. And you can also watch online through the First Coast News app and firstcoastnews.com. But we will continue to update you right here on Facebook, on YouTube, on First Coast News Plus. And from all of us here at First Coast News, please stay safe, heed those warnings, and keep it right here on First Coast News. We're on your side. We'll keep you updated. Tim, thanks so much.
Thank
you for joining us.